During family dinner, my sister-in-law stood up, pointed at me, and said, "You're a cheater." Then she turned to my 7-year-old daughter and added, "You're not really ours. Robert isn't your dad." My husband didn't panic. He did this. 5 minutes later, they regretted everything. If motherhood gives you anything, it's radar. Not the fun kind that helps you find lost toys. The animal kind. The something in this room is wrong sense. That feeling hit me the moment my husband, Robert, and I walked into his parents' dining room that night. His mother, Ruth, gave me a tight smile. His father, Gerald, gave me no smile at all. And his younger sister, Jenna, sat there with the look of a cat who had eaten something it shouldn't and couldn't wait to brag about it. Our daughter, Mia, 7 years old and sweet enough to break your heart, slipped into the seat beside me. She swung her legs and hummed under her breath, oblivious to the storm gathering around her. The room was too quiet. Too ready. We made it through salad. Barely. Then Ruth cleared her throat. The kind of throat clear that means someone is about to drop a bomb disguised as family conversation. "Jenna," she said, "you wanted to share something with us?" Share. My stomach dropped. Jenna pushed her chair back and stood up slowly, dramatically, because of course she did. She pointed at me like a prosecutor in a courtroom she built in her head. "You," she announced, voice trembling with excitement, "are a cheater." I blinked. I honestly thought maybe she meant at board games, or that weird family diet challenge I keep refusing to join. But no, she meant actual cheating. Before I could process that level of delusion, Jenna turned to my daughter, to Mia, and said, "You're not really ours. Robert isn't your dad." The world dropped out from under us. Mia froze. Her little face drained of color. She looked at Robert, then at me, then back at Robert. "Daddy?" she whispered, barely audible. What does she mean?" My heart cracked so violently I swear I heard it. And then, because apparently cruelty is a group sport, Gerald added, flat and cold, "Sweetie, we're not really your grandparents." I felt Mia flinch like she'd been slapped. I reached for her immediately, pulled her out of her chair, held her against my chest. I didn't shout, didn't argue, didn't give them a show. I stood up, took her hand, and walked her toward the hallway. Behind me, I heard Jenna drop something on the table with a triumphant smack. As we turned, my eyes caught a glimpse of an envelope on the table. Thick, official-looking, the kind that comes from clinics or labs. I didn't stop or touch it, but I saw the way Robert's expression tightened when he looked at it, like he already knew exactly what it was and exactly what it meant. I kept walking, but my ears strained for Robert's voice. Inside the dining room, the shouting started. "Ruth, we did you a favor." Jenna, "It's a paternity test. Open it." Gerald, "Go on, see for yourself. She played you for a fool." Mia trembled in my arms, and then Robert's voice, calm, controlled, dangerously steady. "This," he said, "is the last time we will ever visit you." Silence. Sharp, shocked silence. Ruth sputtered, "What? What do you mean? You should be angry at her, not us." Jenna screeched, "We told you the truth." Robert didn't raise his voice, but every word hit like steel. "I can't believe you did a DNA test behind my back." A beat. "I can't believe you said this in front of a child." Another beat. "You're right about one thing." I held my breath. "You're not her grandparents anymore." Someone gasped. "And I'm not your son anymore." Chairs scraped. Someone cursed. Someone tried to talk over him. And then Robert said the line that turned the whole night inside out. "Yes, I know she isn't biologically mine." The room went dead still. "I have always known." I closed my eyes, holding Mia tighter. And my wife never cheated on me. More silence. Stunned, choking silence. The kind his family had never experienced in their lives. Then Robert's footsteps approached, slow and heavy. He appeared in the hallway, eyes on our daughter first, then on me. "Let's go," he said quietly. We left without another word. No dramatic exit. No anger. Just a clean, permanent cut. As we walked into the cold night air, Mia clinging to me, Robert's hand on my back, I felt the ground shift under us. Like the universe had finally snapped a tension wire that had been tightening for years. What happened that night didn't start at that dinner table. Not even close. To understand how we got here, you have to know what happened long before this night. If you'd told me years ago that my in-laws would someday accuse me of cheating using a secret DNA test, I wouldn't have laughed. I would have sighed and said, "Yeah, that tracks." Because the truth is, nothing with Robert's family ever happened suddenly. The red flags didn't explode. They whispered. Slowly. Persistently. Until one day, you realize you've spent years pretending things were normal when they were anything but. When I first met Robert, he was 21, sweet in a quiet way, and had that earnest, slightly overwhelmed look of someone who tried very hard to be good at everything. I fell for him embarrassingly fast. Meeting his family felt like sitting at a table where everyone else had already chosen sides. His mother, Ruth, gave interrogation-level small talk. His father, Gerald, did the thing where every sentence started with, "Well, actually." And his younger sister, Jenna, was around 10 at the time, but already fluent in superiority. The very first dinner, Ruth leaned in and asked, "So, what exactly are your intentions with our Robert?" Our Robert. Like he was a family heirloom I was sneaking out of the display cabinet. She didn't stop there. She kept weaving in subtle jabs like a mosquito invisibly dive-bombing. "Oh, Robert is such a generous boy. I'm sure he paid for your meal. Girls your age can be expensive." Mind you, I had bought the groceries for that dinner, but when people are looking for a villain, they'll script the story themselves. Jenna, even as a middle schooler, took notes like an intern training for hostility. "Why do you let him buy you things?" she'd ask. "He bought me a $2 plastic keychain," I said once. "That adds up," she said, dead serious. Meanwhile, the actual financial foundation of the family was Robert. He'd put himself through community college with no help from Ruth and Gerald, then went straight into working full-time. And from the moment he got his first paycheck, his parents treated his income like it was part of their monthly budget. He called it helping. I called it mandatory tithing to the church of emotional guilt. Still, we got married. We were happy. We built our own routines, our own little world, and the bi-weekly dinners with his parents became something I tolerated the way you tolerate dentist cleanings. Necessary, mildly painful, survivable. Then we started trying for a baby. Trying turned into tracking. Tracking turned into timing. Timing turned into 2 years of nothing. And then came the doctor's office. The too quiet room. The pause before the results. The soft voice delivering a hard truth. Robert would never have biological children. Not low chance. Not maybe someday. 0. My husband held my hand, squeezed once, and whispered, "Okay." And he meant it. But that okay lived in the back of my ribs for months. We talked. For hours. Days. Weeks. It came down to 3 choices. Stay child-free. Adopt. Use a sperm donor. In the end, we chose the donor. Not because it was easy, nothing about it was, but because it gave us the chance to build the family we wanted without waiting years in an adoption system held together with paperwork and prayers. So we made the decision. Quietly. Privately. Then we made another. We wouldn't tell Robert's family, not because we were ashamed, but because we knew they would use it like ammunition, weaponize it, whisper about it, turn it into a hierarchy of real versus not real. And the idea of Ruth or Gerald looking at our child and seeing something less than was unbearable. Then our daughter Mia was born. And oh, she was perfect. She looked like me. A lot like me. Which made sense, of course. But even then, Ruth couldn't help herself. She doesn't have any of Robert's features, she'd say, squinting. Funny that. Gerald once asked, half joking. Sure she's yours, Robbie. It took every molecule of self-control in Robert's body to stay calm, but the worst was Jenna, because she was old enough to know better and still chose cruelty. You guys spoil her, she'd say. Meanwhile, we bought her a bubble wand for $3. But in Jenna's mind, any dollar spent on Mia was a dollar stolen from her Royal College fund. And speaking of that, when Jenna graduated high school, she announced she was attending an expensive private university, not community college, not something modest, a school with a tuition bill that looked like a surgical procedure. Guess who she expected to pay? Not her parents. Nope. Robert. And he did. For 2 years, 2 full years, he paid her tuition. Not her housing, not her meals. She had to work part-time. But the tuition itself was massive. A generous, back-breaking gift. And what did Jenna say every time she visited? You're spending too much on your wife. You take too many vacations with Mia. If you didn't spoil your own family so much, maybe you could help your real family. Real family. Funny word now. Looking back, all the signs were there. All the resentment, all the entitlement, all the jealousy, and all the pressure to make sure their golden daughter got everything she wanted, even at the expense of ours. But nothing prepared me for the night when all those years of quiet poison finally erupted. And my 7-year-old learned the truth in the most brutal way possible. And that truth? That wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. If silence had a temperature, the drive home that night could have flash-frozen a lake. Mia sat in the back seat, small and rigid, staring out the window like she was afraid the darkness might stare back. Robert gripped the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles white. I kept glancing at her through the mirror, waiting for a question, a tear, a breath. Anything. Nothing. Just a little girl holding her whole world together with 2 trembling hands. When we got home, she walked inside like she was sleepwalking. She didn't run to her toys, didn't take off her shoes, didn't ask for a snack. She just stood in the hallway, waiting for someone to tell her what reality was now. Robert and I exchanged a look, the kind that says, okay, this is where we stop being shocked and start being parents. We sat with her on the couch. I took her hand. Robert took the other. Mia, I said softly, remember how we've told you that we wanted you for a very long time? She nodded. Well, Robert said gently, when Mommy and I were trying to have a baby, the doctors told us my body couldn't make babies the regular way, so they helped us. Mia blinked, watching him like she was trying to understand a foreign language spoken underwater. You grew in Mommy's tummy, he continued. You were always wanted. You were always loved. And you are my daughter. Now and always. And Mommy never cheated, I added, because that poison needed to be neutralized immediately. Daddy has always known how you were made. He never had a second of doubt. She didn't cry. She didn't ask anything. She just nodded once, quietly slipped off the couch, and walked toward her room. The door clicked shut behind her. Robert rubbed his face. I don't know if that was acceptance or emotional shutdown. Both, I said. Welcome to childhood trauma speedruns. We gave her space. She needed it. We also needed a moment to breathe because the chaos wasn't over. It was just getting started. Robert walked into the office and sat down at his computer, his face set in a way that left no room for negotiation. Calm, steady, done. He opened the banking app. First click, cancel recurring transfer to Ruth and Gerald. Second click, cancel Jenna's tuition payment. Third click, shut down the extra debit card Jenna had been using. "Tara," he called from the office. "I'm cutting off everything. All of it." I walked to the doorway. "Good." He let out a short, shaky laugh. "Feels weirdly healthy." "Well," I said, "I'd bake you a congratulatory cake, but after tonight, I'm not sure either of us can emotionally handle cake." He leaned back in the chair, exhaling. "Honestly, this feels like the first decision I've made about them that actually makes sense." The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Mia came out of her room holding a stuffed animal and asked if she could watch cartoons. No meltdown, no follow-up questions, just gentleness, fragility. I kept her close all day. Around noon, Robert's phone started ringing. Ruth and Gerald. He stared at the screen like it was something radioactive. "Tara," he said flatly. "They know about the tuition." He answered. The screaming started instantly. "How could you do this? Your sister needs this. You're ruining her future. We can't afford this without you. It's 2 days before the deadline." Robert held the phone an inch from his ear, expression blank. "I'm not paying anymore," he said calmly. "Robert, be reasonable," Gerald barked. "She can't study without your support." "She's 20, he replied. "She can take a loan, get a job, be an adult." Ruth practically shrieked. "You can't abandon family!" "You abandoned mine last night," he said. There was silence. Sharp. Ugly. Sizzling. Then the guilt-tripping began. "You're choosing her over us. You're brainwashed. You owe us. Your sister is counting on you." Robert hung up. Just hung up. No dramatic speech, no yelling, just a click. I walked over and kissed his cheek. "I'm proud of you." He looked startled. "I've never done that before," he admitted. "Hung up on them. Feels good though, right?" He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it since childhood. "Yeah. Actually, yeah." Mia peeked around the corner. "Daddy? Are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" Robert crouched down to her level. "They're upset because they did something wrong," he said. "Not because of you." She nodded and went to her room without a word. Robert exhaled, leaning a shoulder against the wall like all the weight he'd been carrying finally slid into one place. We didn't even get 20 minutes before someone hammered at the door. Not frantic, not polite, just the kind of knock that says, "We're coming in one way or another." Robert's head lifted. "I'll get it," I said, already halfway there. I opened the door just a crack. Ruth and Gerald, faces tight, breathing hard. That self-righteous anger older people get when they feel they've been disrespected. "Let us in," Ruth said. Not a question. I stepped aside so the neighbors wouldn't have a front row seat. They walked in like the house belonged to them. Robert came into the hallway. His expression didn't change, but his whole posture did. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Gerald answered with, "You hung up on us." Robert didn't deny it. "Yes." Ruth's eyebrows shot up. "That's how you speak to your parents now?" "That's how I speak to anyone who crosses a line," he said. Ruth folded her arms. "We want an explanation. Immediately." Robert nodded once. "Fine. I canceled the tuition payments. I'm not paying anymore." Gerald blinked. "You what?" "You heard me." "You can't do that," Ruth snapped. She needs that money. She's 20, Robert said. Plenty of adults figure it out. That's easy for you to say, Gerald said. You already had help when you were young. From who? Robert asked. Because it wasn't either of you. Ruth inhaled sharply. Don't be dramatic. We supported you in our own ways. You criticized Tara every chance you got, Robert said. You treated her like she was stealing from me when she was paying half our bills. You treated Mia like a guest. And now this. Ruth's lips thinned. Jenna made a mistake. I stepped closer. She told my daughter she wasn't family. She didn't mean it, Ruth insisted. She spoke without thinking. And you backed her, Robert said. Gerald shook his head. You're overreacting. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. Emotions? Robert echoed. My daughter cried herself to sleep because of what you said. Ruth stiffened. We didn't say anything cruel. We simply told the truth. You told a 7-year-old that she wasn't really part of her family, I said. You think that's not cruel? Gerald took a step forward. Well, maybe if you hadn't lied about... Stop. Robert's voice turned low. Say what you want to say. Gerald swallowed, then said it plainly. You should have told us. Ruth added, We had a right to know that she isn't our granddaughter. Biologically. My breath stuck in my throat. That was the sentence that cracked the house open. Because behind us, at the edge of the hallway, a small voice whispered, Daddy? Mia stood there, bare feet, wet hair, face pale. Her eyes flicked between all of us. They said, I'm not their granddaughter. Her voice broke on the last word. I didn't even think. I went to her, lifting her before her knees gave out. She clung to my shirt and started to cry, quiet, shuddering sobs that made her whole body shake. Ruth took a step toward her. Sweetheart, you misunderstood. We didn't mean... Don't, Robert said. His tone was level, not raised, but final. He walked toward us, putting a protective hand on Mia's back while she shook against me. Then he turned to his parents. You need to leave. Ruth blinked. Robert, listen. I'm done listening. Gerald's voice tightened. We came here to fix this. No, Robert said. You came here to justify yourselves. Ruth frowned. This is not how a son speaks to his parents. Robert didn't move. This is how a father protects his child. The sentence hung in the air like a closing door. Ruth's eyes flashed with insult. You would throw away your own family over a misunderstanding? You are the ones who threw us away, Robert said. The moment you made Mia believe she didn't belong. Gerald shook his head, stunned that he was losing control of the narrative. If we walk out that door, you won't be coming back, Robert finished. He opened the front door, holding it with steady hands. Please go. Ruth stared at him for a long few seconds, disbelief written across her face. But Robert didn't look away. Eventually, she stepped past him. Gerald followed. They walked to the car without another word. Robert shut the door, locked it, checked it twice. When he turned around, the anger in him was gone, replaced with something quieter and far heavier. He took Mia gently from my arms and held her against him, her small fists still gripping his shirt. It's okay, he whispered. You're okay. She cried until her breath slowed, until the tension melted out of her little body, until the only sound in the house was her soft sniffing. Robert didn't let go. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Some choices explained themselves. Later, after she finally fell asleep, we stood in the doorway watching her breathe. Robert took my hand. This isn't the end of it, he murmured. You know that. I nodded. It wasn't. The week that followed was quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, just normal in a way we hadn't felt in years. Mia didn't ask about Ruth or Gerald again. She didn't bring up what she overheard. She didn't cry at bedtime. She just slowly returned to herself. One night while we made dinner, she asked very seriously, "Do we still have to go to Grandma Ruth's Sunday lunches?" Robert froze with the spatula midair. I held my breath. Then she added, "Because I don't want to pretend to like her meatloaf anymore. It tastes like old socks." I choked on my drink. Robert actually laughed. A small, tired laugh, but real. "No," he told her. "No more Sunday lunches." "Good," she said, already moving on. "Can we have tacos instead?" Just like that, a weight shifted. In the evenings, she colored at the dining table while Robert caught up on work, and I finished my own tasks. Sometimes she'd wander over, lean against him, and ask what he was typing with that tiny, suspicious frown kids get. Sometimes she'd crawl into my lap and show me drawings of our little family, just the three of us, standing under a crooked sun. She didn't draw Ruth and Gerald in any of them, and I didn't ask why. A quiet week passed. Not peaceful, just steady, like we were all learning to breathe again. Then, on Saturday morning, just as Robert and I were getting Mia's shoes on for a library trip, there was a knock at the door, not loud, not aggressive, just a soft, hesitant knock. Robert and I looked at each other. We both knew exactly who it was before we even opened the door. Jenna. Standing alone on the porch, holding a small box wrapped in bakery twine. Her eyes were red, her shoulders round, and for the first time in her life, she looked unsure of her place in the world. "Tara," she said, voice thin. "Can I talk to you both?" Robert stepped beside me. His jaw tightened automatically. He was polite, but only in the way you're polite to a stranger holding a suspicious package. Jenna swallowed hard. "I came to apologize." She held out the cake like an offering to the gods. Her hands were shaking. "I really didn't know," she said. "If I had known the truth, I would never have said those things, and not in front of Mia. That was horrible. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked on sorry, and for a moment I saw the frightened teenager underneath all the entitlement. Robert nodded once. Nothing warm, nothing soft. Just acknowledgement. "We accept your apology," he said. Jenna looked relieved, then panicked, then relieved again. She glanced behind us. "Is Mia here? I want to say it to her too." "No," I said. "And she doesn't need any more confusion right now." Jenna nodded quickly. "Right. Of course, that makes sense." A long silence stretched out. The kind people fill with fake small talk. But Jenna didn't reach for small talk. She reached for the real reason she came. "I also wanted to ask," she began, eyes darting everywhere except at us, "if you could still pay my tuition." There it was. Robert didn't react. Not even a blink. Jenna kept going, words spilling out like she was trying to outrun her own desperation. "I can't afford it. Not even close. And if I don't pay, they'll drop me from the semester. I don't know what to do." She took a shaky breath. "Could you maybe just loan it to me? I swear I'll pay it back when I graduate, or when I get a job, or—" "No," Robert said. The word landed like a hammer. Jenna blinked, stunned. "No?" "No," he repeated. "I'm not paying anymore." She swallowed hard. "Okay, I get it. After everything that happened, it's complicated. But maybe just this semester? Just to get me through the transition." "No!" Her face twisted. "Please," she whispered. "I can't drop out. You don't understand. No one else can help me." I understand perfectly, Robert said. You're an adult. Adults figure things out. She looked like she'd been slapped. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said quietly. I didn't know. That's the problem, Robert cut in. You didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't care how it would affect a 7-year-old hearing those words. Jenna's mouth trembled. Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. I said I was sorry, she whispered. And we accepted your apology, I said. But an apology isn't a coupon. She winced. I can't believe you'd let me fail, she said softly. After everything. After everything, Robert repeated. After everything I paid? After the years of helping? After everything my daughter went through? Yes. After everything. Another tear slipped down her cheek. Is there anything I can do? She whispered. No, Robert said. Her shoulders collapsed inward. She looked, for the first time in her life, small. Really small. She turned to leave. Hand on the doorknob, she paused and said almost inaudibly, I never thought you'd choose her over us. Robert stared at her like she'd spoken Martian. She's my daughter, he said. There was never a choice. Jenna nodded once, sharp, defeated, and walked into the cold. Robert closed the door, locked it, then leaned against it, letting out a long, exhausted breath. I walked over and pressed my forehead against his. We did the right thing, I said. He nodded, eyes closed. I know. I just didn't expect it to feel like this. Like what? Like I finally grew up. 6 months later, life is simple in a way it hasn't been in years. We've stayed no contact. No more shouting matches, no guilt trips, no sudden demands for money. Just calm. Robert's paycheck stays with us now. Every dollar. And Mia? She's happier than I've ever seen her. Light. Confident. Completely unbothered by the people who once made her feel small. Meanwhile, word gets around. Ruth and Gerald had to take out emergency loans after Jenna missed the chance to apply for student loans. Then another loan when that wasn't enough. They even refinanced their house to cover her tuition. Now they're buried in debt, and Jenna is exhausted working extra hours just to keep up. The same people who treated us like we owed them the world, they're the ones sinking. And us? We're finally free. So what do you think? Did Robert go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.